How do I do it? Well, I don't think I'm double jointed or anything. It's hard to describe how you do something like that. Anybody else here?
Would you compare your style with Dan Crary?
No, I wouldn't compare my style with Dan Crary. You mean a comment on comparison of this? Okay. Well, they are two totally different concepts. Even from using basic music as a foundation, the concepts are totally different. Dan is a very traditional player, plays a lot of fiddle tunes, and he has a different concept about the way the instrument should sound and how he plays it and everything. He holds a pick different, and, you know. Right. I think he anchors a wrist down on the bridge, and, you know, just does his own thing. But one thing's for sure, his technique works for him, doesn't it? So, anybody else?
Who were some of your early influences on the guitar?
Well, okay, from the ground up, I'd have to say Lester Flatt, because that was the first bluegrass music that I remember hearing anyway. And then after that, when I was very young, I met Clarence White, who was also very young, and then I was 9 years old at the time, and he was 16, and he was like a big kid in the neighborhood. He was the guy that I set my own pattern from, was Clarence White. So, thanks, thank you. But right back there. Okay, that's a good question. Actually, it's a little bit of all of it, because if you look at a chart of a tune on a piece of paper, most of them are in one key, even though there's, you know, several different chords. Most tunes you can sort of stick to one scale, or I should say mode would be the way, and that's what happens most of the time, and you're sort of free to just explore the fingerboard while the band plays the changes. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, of course. Sometimes there's certain tunes that require changes that are not within a particular mode or scale, or they change quite frequently. And in that case, you just have to use brain power and you know, either you're improvising, or if you don't do that, you got to rehearse. And if you don't do that, you could make a fool of yourself. So, anybody else?
Do you play much off your acoustics album?
No, I don't. I can't think of a tune that I play off of that album anymore.
I would love to have heard it myself, but I'm wondering why you don't play the jazzier stuff.
Well, I occasionally do some of it from the other albums. It's just you happen to mention acoustics, and the only thing I do off that is occasionally swing 51. If I get together with somebody like Grisman or somebody like that, I might do it. But as far as the other tunes, you know, they're just tunes that I've done, I've recorded, and I don't play them anymore, so you tend to forget them. You know?
Because of the people you're playing with, the group that you're with now?
Yeah, this is primarily a vocal group. Did you hear like the set last night or anything? Well, that's primarily what I've been doing for 2 years. See, back when I was doing instrumental music, everybody was screaming, well, why in the hell don't you sing anymore? So, yeah, well, it sort of has for the time being, yeah. Right back there. Uh-huh. Well, I became interested in jazz and folk music back when I was in my early to mid-teens, and Lightfoot was one of the guys that I heard. And he appealed to me because he sort of put some seriousness into his level, you know, his own level of folk music. Like he wrote real good tunes and things. And so later on, as I started to sing more and become more musically active, I thought that his tunes would be, you know, good vehicles to take and use my own ideas toward. And anyway, I hope that answers the question. Anybody else here?
I noticed in some of your leads, you sometimes throw in what seems like a couple of quick jazz chords.
Uh-huh.
Did you work that out consciously, or did you just kind of stumble on that when you were revising?
Well, something like that, the more you do it, the more you figure out what will work and what won't. And sometimes I go for it without even knowing whether it'll work or not. But I try to keep, I try not to do anything real drastic, say, within traditional music. You know, I try not to play any real outside chords. But, you know, there's a whole bunch of them that you accumulate, a whole bunch of those substitutions. And once you do it long enough, you start to learn what will work and what won't. So, anybody else? Yeah.
Say, when you compose a song like Devlin said,
Uh-huh.
do you start with a progression and then work the notes from that, or start with the notes and then work into the chords? How do you think about it when you're writing?
Okay, Devlin was written with chords first. It was, the best I remember, I had started to hear 2 different sets of chord progressions that I had been fooling around with for a while. So I put them together in the form of a tune, which has a bridge and a chorus, and then after I had the chord structure down, I think I put that down on a piece of tape, and it just kept playing it back and trying to get ideas of how to make something melodic out of it. And anyway, the result was the tune Devlin. So, anybody else?
Did you study music theory at all?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Do you read music?
No, I don't read music either. But I did take a real brief course in ear training. I tried teaching at this school that was in Sausalito years ago. It was called Family Light. And they all told me I was a terrible teacher, which I guess I really am. Maybe even one of the worst. But there was a guy there named Win Westover that was real good in basic ear training, so I took his course a few times, and that essentially teaches you to appreciate the value of every note that you hear. I mean, every note you hear, right or wrong, it does have some value. So. Anybody else out there?
Yeah, all these songs, like Gordon Lightfoot, James Taylor, you just sit down and start jamming, and then you can actually go down the range and decide. You just play style you feel.
Okay, let me see if I can take an example here. Okay, the question was, well, when I take somebody like James Taylor's tune or Gordon Lightfoot, how do I structure it and arrange it to make a, you know, something out of it that can be useful on a record album? Okay, for example, I did several of Lightfoot's tunes on my newest album, and there was about 3 of those tunes that I went into the studio with just a lyric sheet. And a couple of them in particular, I had Jerry Douglas was there, and Jimmy Goodrow, and Mark Schatz, and my brother Wyatt. So I sat down with the guitar, sung the tune, and played the chords. And they essentially fooled around with it for half an hour or so. And you start to develop these ideas from this interplay with other musicians, you know. If you're working with good musicians, that's what happens anyway. So in terms of how the tune sounds like it is, I think they would be just as much responsible for that as I am. So, and more often than not, that's the case. To answer the question more specifically, I don't usually go in with a structure to the tune and make them play or restrict them to play within any particular context. We just go in and play the music, and it turns out that way.
Do you have any a new album coming out? Anything upcoming? Other than Me and My Guitar?
Actually, I'm working on 2 albums right now at the same time. One is a new bluegrass thing that I've been doing. It's not one of those. Yeah, it's not one of the bluegrass albums. This is a bluegrass-oriented project, which is, I think, is similar to Cold on the Shoulder. That record got pretty good response, and so the following one after that, which was Me and My Guitar, some people thought might have been taking it a step too far. So I figured, well, what the hell? I'll back up a half a step, and then on the next one, I'll really let them have it.
Yeah, go for it.
Are you playing your Martin or are you playing the new sound?
I have been playing both.
What were you playing last night?
That was my Martin I was playing last night. The Santa Cruz I had worked on by them about 2 or 3 days ago, and it was worse when I picked it up than it was when I brought it in. So No, that's not to discredit them. It just so happened that the work that I had done requires a break-in period, and sometimes it's a painful break-in break-in period. Back there. Yeah, Norman Blake and I finished an album together. Should be 2 or 3 months, I would say, at the most.
What's the title?
It's called Blake and Rice. Anybody else?
When are they going to give you top billing on the albums? Instead of, whenever you did Skaggs and Rice, or Ricky got the first one, when's it going to be Rice and somebody else?
Oh, well, I think there was 2 theories to that. With the Skaggs Rice project, I think the concept was to use reverse alphabetical order on the name billing. And so by the time it got to Blake Rice, I thought, well, what the hell, I'll turn it around this time.
You're just trying to confuse me.
Anybody else? No, I haven't. My road manager here, Billy Wolf, tried to get me to do it one time, and I sit down with one about 5 minutes and threw it down. No, but that is a good question, because people have this misconception about electric versus acoustic instruments, because the scale length is usually the same and it has the same number of strings and it's tuned the same, but the concepts are totally different. At least for me, I found it out, because with an acoustic, it's how hard you can play it. With an electric, it's just the opposite. It's the lighter the touch you have, the more proficient player you can become. Funny. Yeah, sorry. Vinci is the name, V-I-N-C-I. Anybody?
Brass or bronze?
Well, I go from one to another. 90% brass, but if I'm in a playing situation where, it's real hot and I would sweat a lot or something like that, then I would switch over to a phosphor bronze, because the sweat doesn't eat them up quite as fast. Yeah, my hand sweats. You.
How do you feel a single cutaway on an acoustic guitar affects the sound?
I don't think it does affect the sound, because an acoustic guitar, the principle of an acoustic guitar doesn't really work from the sound hole forward. I mean, there's nothing there to make any sense. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. So, in fact, I would think that they could actually have a double cutaway, and you wouldn't really hear the difference. But I think they look like shit, so I'm. But anybody else?
Do you play Clarence White's guitar much, or is it just something you set aside?
No, I play it. In fact, I keep it so close to me, it's right there. I'm not going to let it run off. Yeah, no, I do play it a lot. I play quite a bit. It's not as loud as my other instrument, and so here for the past couple of years, I've been playing the other one quite frequently. But anyway, I still play it. Even if I don't want to play it, sometimes it's expected of me to play it, so I do. Anybody else? Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate that. Anybody else?
A lot of us amateurs have a problem from time to time after playing a while, sort of reach a plateau, and it's kind of hard to get beyond that in playing ability. I know you're not a teacher, but do you have any suggestions that you can relate to your practice to help someone get beyond a certain level that they seem to be stuck in?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different things. Where most people fail is the basic essentials of music, believe it or not. Most people, I think, have the ability to be proficient melodically, and also most people, and particularly students, make the mistake of starting there melodically as opposed to basic steps of tuning, timing, and intonation. And those things can be very difficult to develop. But if you take them separately, all right, timing is one issue. I'm one of the worst time bugs in the world. I hate musicians that play out of time. I can't stand it. But anyway, timing, if you don't have anybody to play with that you trust, get a metronome and sit down and learn how to make the metronome slow up and speed down. Do you see what I'm saying? Learn how to groove with a metronome. Outside of that, you're as good as the band you play with. Remember that. So if you can find yourself some people that you trust and that are in time and in tune, play with them as much as you can, because they'll give you feedback, and you'll in turn give them feedback, and you'll start to play off each other. Anyway, I hope that answers the question. Anybody else? No, I don't like to use a pickup. Well, did you see my article in Guitar Player about them? Anybody? Huh. Well, I don't want to say I'm against them, because they have a purpose, particularly for people that play with, that like to try to incorporate acoustic guitar into either rock and roll or country music or something like that. Well, then they need that amplification. But it's like the means of amplification itself, like a pickup on an acoustic guitar, the principle doesn't work, and the sound is bad, right? So, I mean, has anybody here heard a pickup on a D28 that makes it sound like a D28? Well, okay, there's... Anybody else?
Can you give us a clue where we can get some of the kind of picks you use?
Japan?
Without going there.
Yeah, without going there. No, that's a real tough question, because I've heard that they're around, and that they're even less expensive now than they were years ago. And but there's only one music store that I know where you can go in and buy them, and they're real good. It's called Picker's Supply in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So if somebody here's real desperate for them, you might just drop them a line or something.
What would you ask for?
Ask for tortoiseshell picks. Anybody else here? Right there. With Pat Flynn? Oh yeah, sure. No, to be honest with you, I haven't thought about doing an album with Pat Flynn, and I doubt if he's thought about doing one with me. So, no, we're very good friends, and Pat is a very good musician and very good person too. And but they're like it would be like Dan Query and myself doing an album. The styles, I mean, there's nothing that much in common, except maybe you could tack the word old time music or bluegrass on there, and that's in common. But in terms of like the tunes and the concepts, they're totally different. Anybody else? Come on, people, don't be shy. I mean, right there again. Well, okay, practicing is something that I haven't done in years, and sometimes it shows. But yeah, I just play. To me, that's practice. And as to how long I've been playing, I'm 36 years old, and I don't remember starting. So, over there. Yeah, okay, now that that concept with myself and Norman, that might even throw a lot of people into thinking that, well, this is going to be another one of those old-time records with a lot of hot licks on it, you know. And it's not that. There's more vocal on it than anything, and Norman is playing 60% mandolin. And so and there's a couple of, well, there's actually 2 or 3 original tunes of Norman's and some other goodies that we dug up together. New River Train, and I'm Coming Back, but I Don't Know When, you know, some old Monroe Brothers classics that are on there.
It just seemed like, hearing those tones, it seemed like some of your styles were different.
Yeah,
Dan Curry, and I wondered, it brought some curiosity as to why you would say the Lennon for that.
oh, right, I see what you're saying. Well, I mean, that's as best as I can answer for now, is that we did find that common element, at least Blake and I did, and it was in the music itself, you know, as opposed to like trying to play Blackberry Blossom and see who could outplay the other one or whatever, you know. Right. Anybody else? Right there. Uh-huh. Well, I think in that sense, all arpeggios are chords, right, to some degree. It's just a matter of how you stack the individual notes together. You know, and it works the other way, too. It's like chords, like, for example, you can hold a chord position, and if you play the individual notes one at a time and in some given order, it could make you could build an arpeggio from that, too. You know? And I think I do a little bit of both, but I do it subconsciously. In other words, I don't think about it when I'm doing it. No, not, I just do it by ear. In other words, if I do it, it's something that I'm not aware of. I'm sorry to be so vague about it, but,
Would you like to break into a more commercial type music and major record companies and mass marketing?
no, I am signed with Columbia Records, but it's not for the purposes of making a commercial type record. In fact, if I had to make a commercial type record, I wouldn't sign with them. Put it that way. I'm not into prostituting myself as a musician, so I hope that answers the question anyway. But I do what I do, and whenever I try to expand my own music, I always do it with the hopes that it'll reach a wider audience. And if that happens, then I'm grateful for it. If it doesn't, then maybe I'll give a stab at something else. Right there.
What do you see now as your new influences, new directions for your life?
Well, I've done some stuff recently with acoustic piano and bass and drums as a rhythm section, and I'm sure I'll be doing more of that, primarily vocal-oriented things. So I found out one thing: the voice will make a hell of a lot more money than the guitar will. Anyway, anybody else? Well, oh, sorry.
You cut an album. You said you don't read music, right?
All right.
If there's a music score written for that album, like the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's, I heard they didn't know how to read when they cut that. So they gave it to these academic musicians who listened to it and wrote the music score for it and sold it.
Right.
Do you have that done to your music? Where it would come out, your album would be, music score to it would be published, but it would be done by someone else?
Yeah, it is done by somebody else, and sometimes it's done unbeknownst to me, and whenever it is, I try to sue the hell out of whoever did it. But I have been real lucky. It's been...
Copyright is legal edition. Does it, since you're not a literate musician, could it not?
No, he's correct. I am not a literate musician. Anyway, go ahead.
Because I've heard other students say, like, take a Stevie Wonder song or something, and you get the music score for it, and you try to read it, and you say it doesn't represent what his record was. It was just written by some guy that was paid by Stevie Wonder.
Right, I see what you're saying. Some sheet music that you buy for popular music is very crude. I think, at least that's what I've been told. It sounds like, for example, somebody might go buy the sheet music that's available commercially, and when they end up playing it, it sounds like something you'd hear on an elevator or in a supermarket, right? Anyway, yeah, I don't think that has been done to my music yet. I hope it hasn't. In fact, all the comments that I've heard from people that do read and have read my transcriptions, they say that they're all real good. And I usually try to screen the people that do it. I mean, ask somebody, well, how reliable is this guy? So, and I hope that answers the question. Anybody else? Back there. Oh, God, no, man. Sometimes it's a nightmare. And sometimes it's just the opposite. Sometimes it is very rewarding, indeed. It's, no, it's never really that consistent. I wish it was. How was last night? What do you want, a scale of 1 to 10? Well, I would really be afraid to speak for the guys in the band, but I'd give my own self a 3. But, anybody else? Right there. No, I think Wyatt would probably shoot me if I stole that tune. No, Wyatt's going to be working on his own album. I mean, I don't know how many of you heard him, but he's starting to be a monster on a guitar. In any case, he'll be doing his own album, just like I did my first one, and I'm sure that he'll use as much original material as he has. But maybe he'll ask me to play rhythm on it for him.
Will we ever see Tony Rice's complete songbook?
as a matter of fact, a friend of mine and also a person that does an occasional column in Fret's magazine named John Carlini, who's a person I learned a tremendous amount of music from, is doing a book. He's doing one on David Grisman, and he's doing one on myself.
Will that be a complete or just...
Well, what I've heard is that they want to present it with some solos, transcriptions, and then, you know, some bio material and some photographs and different things, and a color cover and all that, you know. And so, then that should be out. Well, I mean, Carlini and I have already started working on it, so, you know, as to when it'll be out, I would say give it a year at least. You know. Anybody else? Right back there. Well, the way I handle it is if I can't hear it in the first 5 or 10 minutes enough to play it, then I usually tell them to go get somebody else if they've got the wrong guy. No, I'm serious about that. I can. That's just one way that I do it. Most of the time, people that call me to do session work for them, they call me with that in mind. That, you know, most people know that I don't read. And so they figure, well, if they want specific parts, they will call somebody that does know how to read and play exactly what they want. But people hire me for my improvising capability and really nothing more. That's just about it. Yeah.
How much do you charge for your session work?
How much do I charge? Well, it depends on who it is. You know? No, that is a very good question. That really varies. At times it has been union scale quite a bit, or, you know, what I mean, the scale is just itself is just a guideline. Somebody like myself or David Grisman or Jerry Douglas or somebody like that would bill for what's called double scale, which is essentially 2 union scales. That's for people that I don't really consider to be that close of a friend or whatever. Like if I called Jerry Douglas up and asked him to work for me for $1, he'd do it, and I'd do it for him too. I mean, we don't really do that to each other. We, you know, like we, there's a group of us that pay each other real well. So, because you pay them well, and they come back. Next time you call them up on the phone, they don't say, "Oh, I got something else to do," or what, you know, over there.
Most many of the musicians like yourself, they also not read music, improvise like you are. Most of the ones that you work at or read music prefer you.
Well, the ones that don't read music do read charts. Okay, I, you know, use Jerry Douglas again as an example. He's really become a heavy figure on the Nashville session scene, you know, where he does a lot of sessions for other people. And they have their own chart system, and he has since learned to read it and learned to read it real well, too. And he does that, but in terms of like reading music, I don't think he does. Sam Bush, to my knowledge, reads music, but it's one note every 3 seconds. So, you know. And then again, there are people like Richard Green who can read anything you can write. You know, it's like he can just sit down and play it and do it. So, anybody else? Do I know why he has, or? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Oh yeah, okay. Well, a couple of things. He has found his niche in terms of like what I think of as a reasonable compromise between playing what he wants to play and what he has the ability to play, and what gets wide public acceptance too. And you know, couple all those factors with the fact that he's got CBS Records working with him, and then there's your superstar or whatever it is. So, what else? Can I play one of my latest songs or something I've been working on? I haven't been working on anything. No, I haven't. I was trying to think if there's... The last thing that I have wrote is already out on the records. It's an instrumental called Port Tobacco, and it's on me and my guitar. That's the last thing I have out. And I don't even know how to play it because my band doesn't play it, and I haven't played it since I recorded it. Everybody else?
Are any of your audio tapes or video tapes intermediate or beginner level, or are they all advanced?
They're pretty much advanced. There's a series of homespun tapes, which there's, I think, maybe 20 or 30 minutes of the first tape, it's first of 6 tapes, is devoted to like tuning up and things like that. But in terms of like, I mean, well, it gets back to what I said a while ago. I'm a terrible teacher, and there's 6 audio cassettes, and which is a total of 6 hours worth, and there's also a video that's 50 or 55 minutes, and there's more to be learned, I think, from the video than all of the audio put together combined, because the advantage of the video is that if you can freeze the frame anywhere you want to and see exactly what's going on, if that's what you want to do. I wouldn't recommend anybody do it or try to play anything exactly like I do. Back there. There is quite a few of them floating around. There's even a couple of bootlegs out there somewhere, but no, nothing that's been like released. No, nothing like that, huh? I don't know what the reason is for that either. I don't really push that issue that much. I'm sure there'll be some in the future. Anybody else?
Where do you mostly play, or what kind of touring do you do?
Well, let's see. I play anything from public hangings to car wash grand openings, and all the way up to places like the Kennedy Center in Washington. So, no, to be more specific, I do a lot of club dates, and the ones that I do, I try to make sure that they're, of reasonable quality. I do quite a few college concerts, and old theaters is my favorite type of performance. And I do a few festivals, which, with the exception of this one and a couple of more, is my least favorite type of event to do. Especially the ones back east. It's usually hot and muggy and rainy and muddy and things like that. Yeah, and it can be cold. Anybody? Did that answer the question?
Do you mostly stay in the United States, or do
Yeah, well, I've been to Europe and Japan, and I'm going to Europe in about a week and a half. So, but it's mostly here in the United States. Yeah. What else back there? Yeah. Oh, I liked it a lot. I thought it was great. Great. That's an example of what type of shows I like to play, and I've been fortunate that I played quite a few of them. Yeah. And some of them are co-bills too. A lot of the times, like with Norman and Nancy, and then occasionally with the Newgrass Revival, and then a few of those dates I think have been with Nancy Griffith and people like that. Yeah. I mean, I work with a lot of different people, and those happen to be my favorite. Is when you have a co-bill situation where you don't necessarily have an opening act. That's. I mean, I would prefer the co-bill to a warm-up act situation. Right? Anybody else? Over there.
Would you characterize your material as bluegrass or folk or country? Do you have a framework that you hang on to say, this is fine, I do this, I'm an artist, this is what I draw from, like, Vern Williams or something, his music? Or would you say you're more eclectic and you're drawing from different traditions?
Well, I've been accused of being eclectic, but let's see, it's a tough one to answer in a way. I do a lot of different music forms, but I always play the same. It's like the music does come out sounding different, and well, it's just a matter of what kind of concept, and I am just one musician who chooses to like segregate those different concepts. Like, Church Street Blues is one concept. I don't know if you've heard that album or not, but that's one concept of just, a guitar and voice, and then there's duet things with like Skaggs and Norman Blake, and then there's instrumental things, and then there's the Grisman Days, and then there's bluegrass projects. And
pigeonhole yourself or try to say, I'm an artist of this field or this group,
right. Well, see that.
Like country western. bluegrass or, you know, some particular group?
Well, if you could categorize what I do for a living, then I'd be real rich. But you can't categorize it. I mean, I don't think there's anybody here that can put a name on this unless they call it new acoustic mountain folk grass, whatever, you know. I mean, jazz grass or whatever. String music. I always liked that one. It was string music.
If you could categorize what you do, you might be more.
Well, I very well might. I don't know.
So good at, you know, at just various different subtypes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Back there.
Do you see a difference between West Coast and East Coast traditional blended bluegrass?
Yeah, you people out here are more laid back, man. You know. No. It's, well, there is a difference. This is not really to put down any particular place that I've played, but one of my least favorite places to play in terms of audience response is Texas. Now, I don't know why that is. And my favorite place to play of anywhere I've ever played on the globe is New England. Audiences in New England are generally more attentive and more receptive at the same time, too.
Styles with the played. What do you find is
Well, I do the same thing. I mean, you know, in other words, I wouldn't try to tailor the music to suit a particular audience, or, you know, especially one that might be in a different geographical location. It's a real tough one to answer, but I don't know if it changes at all. It's due to like feedback from the audience itself. You know, if I walk out and, you know, and met with a like this when I play a show, then I usually play like shit. But, you know, if I so that's the way that works. And in some places it is different. Yeah, you're fortunate though that, and I'm fortunate too, to be in a place where the audiences out here, especially in this part of California, are real good. So, anybody else? Okay.
Are you going to play a song for us?
I don't think so. Yeah, I am. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do about an hour and a half's worth of tonight. How about that? Everybody else? Right there.
I'd really like to hear some of, I hate to say this, but I think it's going to rain today, the chord change.
Oh, I forgot that tune. There are tunes that you record and then you leave them alone. Just like somebody asked this old shipbuilder about the Titanic, and he said, well, we just builds her and then shoves her in. And that's the way some music is. It's just exactly like that. There's been so many tunes that I've recorded and that people would want to hear, but I, for whatever personal reason, haven't built up the enthusiasm enough to sit down and relearn them. Like the other night, I announced a tune that I had learned off of a record of my own. And I said, here's one that I learned off my third album. And yeah.
The kickoff lick that you do on Old Train on your album just sets the mood for the whole album. I really like it.
Huh, okay. That's, that kickoff is, I'm notorious for blowing that kickoff. I'll tell you, just about 90% of the time I blow it. Last night was one time I think that I didn't blow it. But, and that brings up another point. There's some things, well, okay, for example, that kickoff was 10 years ago. Well, this is 10 years down the line, and, you know, if you don't play every day, you learn to, I mean, you forget those things. And that's one that, you know, that's the reason that sometimes I mess it up, is because I don't play it every day. And in terms of trying to dissect it for you, it would be useless for me to try to do it, because I would show you wrong, I'm sure. So, anybody else back there?
In fiddling, there are different kinds of styles. Old-timey and then protest fiddling, Texas fiddling. Has guitar playing evolved into something identified in those categories? Of certain categories?
I'm sure there are different musical categories. In terms of putting a name on them, I wouldn't know how to do that. For example, people call me a bluegrass guitar player more than they do anything else. And I'm as far from a bluegrass guitar player as you can get, I guess, in terms of that. In terms of bluegrass music per se, I mean, I think of a bluegrass guitar player as has Lester Flatt and Jimmy Martin and Del McCoury and Charlie Waller and whoever, you know. That's bluegrass per se. So on that level, I don't know. It's a real tough one. I'm sure there is. Like, for example, Dan Crary is he's one musician who sort of restricts himself to fiddle type tunes on a guitar, right? And Doc Watson is a person that takes, I think he uses old-time music and the tune itself, you know, as a foundation for the way that he plays. And so, and then you got Russ Berenberg and, you know, different people like that that create their own thing. So, and I don't know which of those categories that I would come closest to. I don't even know. Right here.
Do you foresee playing with having a banjo player in your band in the future, or is there a reason why you don't have one now?
Well, there are dates that I do in the summer where I do have a banjo player. It's J.D. Crowe. I mean, I don't do it all the time, but and I got an album coming out of bluegrass stuff with Bill Emerson as the banjo player. So, oh, that's a hard one. I got this short list of a few of them: J.D. Crowe, Earl Scruggs, Bela Fleck, Bill Emerson, Alan Mundy, Bill Keith.
I meant in the Tony Rice unit.
No, well, I don't know. Bela Fleck might do some live dates with me this year, and if that's the case, then, you know, I mean, he has before, and I'm sure he will again. So, yeah. No, I don't. I always feel like an idiot when I start listening to those players. It's like they're so good that, you know, I use that part of music to listen and not to try to play. Oh, a lot of people. Several horn players, in particular John Coltrane, I really like a lot, and Eric Dolphy and Ernie Watts, if you know who that is, and you know, let's see, who else do I listen to? A lot of keyboard players too, like Bill Evans, you know, an acoustic trio, and things like that. A whole wide range of Miles Davis. Really like, well, the older Miles Davis stuff. Anybody else? Yeah, I do. Yeah, well, sometimes it is. Sometimes I show up in, you know, at a gig somewhere and I don't have any fingernails left, you know. Right there.
I read an article on Fred's Magazine. One section of the article is all about your guitar, Clarence White's guitar.
Uh-huh.
And I believe the serial number's at 58956.
58957. You're one number off.
Oh, okay. Well, meet 58955.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Well, you did 2 numbers away. How about that? Yeah.
Did you ever have a chance to play or know Clarence White?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. I didn't, like, sit down with Clarence White. I mean, there's a lot of people that think I did. They sit down. I mean, they think that I sat down with Clarence and he showed me this and showed me that, and that was never really the case. We were just sort of buddies together on a Southern California music scene when we were both real young. Yeah, back there. Right, okay. Again, audio and video instructional tapes is a real good source. If everything goes right, what I'm going to do in the future, which I think might be helpful to guitar players, is most of my music is stored on multi-track tape, where all the instruments are on discrete tracks or channels. Well, I think what I'm going to do at some point is my engineer and myself are going to go through those and take out me, right? And then present that as an instructional thing in itself, as sort of like a Bluegrass -1 series that somebody had out or whatever. And well, but I think that you know, I'm starting to get into that as a motif, you know, or something that could be a valuable learning tool. Is to like, you know, you know, have a section of the tune that is intact, just like it is, and then have the same section less me or less any other particular instrument or whatever. You know, could be, I think, an invaluable learning tool, because then you get to play along with it. Not only that, but you get to play along with some good musicians. Uh-huh.
When you write your lyrics to your songs, do you use any type of cadences or metrics, or do you use any type of devices in terms of metric lengths, or do you just
Now, what do you mean lyrics? I'm
your songs, your words?
yeah. Well, first off, I don't write my own. I mean, I haven't in ages.
Lyrics, your words.
There was one about 10 years ago that I still detest, and so I didn't like my effort at it, so I quit.
So you're doing other.
Other people's material, yeah, right there.
This is a great fascination for high-speed microphones.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Why is it we have a lot of great flat pickers and electrics pick high speed? Is that musically
Well, I think even in even to the general populace, there's something about it that's obviously fascinating. Because in terms of specifically what that fascination is, I'm not really sure. You know, I heard it when I first heard music. I was fascinated by it because of the rapid succession of notes played from a 5-string banjo. That's, you know, was what was real appealing to me, and so. And I'm sure some people feel the same way about fast flat picking or whatever. I don't know. You know, it's a really tough one to answer. I'm sorry? Will I get any faster? I don't know. I may or may not. It just depends on the requirement of a given tune. I'm trying to slow down, if you want to know the truth. Well, anybody else? Yeah, back there. You. Thank you. Uh-huh. Yeah, they're just scattered out on different albums. If you can find a touch of some of that stuff even on the instrumental things that I did. You know, I don't think there's one particular album that would be a source for that you could use as a learning tool. I think you might try just listening to all of them. You know. Anybody else?
How do you do it?
How do you do it? Again, practice. You know.
5 minutes.
Okay. Anybody else out there? Yes, there is a machine that will do that. It's what is it called, Bill? It's a harmonizer. With a harmonizer, you can slow something down without making it sound growly, right? Or no? Or can you?
In digital format.
In digital format, you can. It's probably real expensive, but it can be done. But in terms of, you know, for practical home use, the best thing would be to take a you know, reel-to-reel tape recorder or a 3 3/4 speed cassette machine or something like that and slow it down. See, even when you slow those things down, you can still hear the fundamental note, and that's all you need anyway, really, is that. In terms of like hearing it tonally, you're going to apply your own tone toward that tune. So, yeah. Anybody else here? Right there.
We talked about timing before. I like the metronomes. You know, if you give advice to a person playing guitar and improve his timing, you said that's it. You said slow up and
Make it slow up and speed down, right?
yeah, that kind of thing. Like what are you talking about? Can you elaborate?
Okay, yeah, it's real simple. You play slightly ahead of the beat and slightly behind it. Now, if you play slightly behind the beat, then you're going to make the metronome sound like it's speeding up. And vice versa, too. If you play, you know, ahead of the beat or whatever, then you're going to make it sound like it's dragging. So, and that's what music is. That's what makes me sound different from Doc Watson and from Dan Crary. Is that I mean, that's just another thing in particular. Besides tone and a different selection of tunes, is timing. That's the reason I say if you can make a metronome work for you, then you're doing pretty good. If that's a goal that you could set right there. Somebody just told me 5 minutes. I brought this instrument here for somebody to take a close look at it. If anybody out there wants to take a close look at it, I'll hand it to you right here. And if you promise not to break it, you can look. Anyway, anybody else with another quick question or two before? There's not a show that I do where I don't have it, and sometimes it's so bad. I mean, you wouldn't believe the extremes. I've had like left hand cramping so bad that I've had to use one finger to finish a solo, and right hand too. I've occasionally got a problem, and people like Grissman have had it so bad that he got tendonitis sometimes. Like that.
Long time ago in a Fred's call, Doc Watson said that he cut some tapes. Is there a recording history of you and Doc Watson playing together somewhere?
Doc and I have played together a number of times. The only thing I can think about that he would be talking about was Doc and I and Norman Blake and Dan Crary judged a workshop, or judged a guitar contest years ago at Winfield, Kansas, and then we played a concert after the thing was over, and I think somebody taped it. I don't know who it was, but maybe that's what he was talking about.
The rest of us will never get to hear it.
I don't know. I'd like for all of you to hear it as long as I get paid for it. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Somebody has told me that I have to go somewhere else, so anyway, this has been a pleasure talking to all of you, and I hope you've learned something. All right.
So I wanted a little delay.
Okay.